Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. And I'm just so delighted that we get a chance to talk from time to time about ambitions. And for those of you where faith guides your steps, let's talk about some faith stuff. And I bring friends on to talk about that. And then also, if you just think that humanity rocks, I agree. I mean, there's some bad actors out there. I'm one of them. I'm like actually super difficult from time to time. And if you don't think you are wrong. You're not as lovely as you think you are. Yet we get to find people who are inspiring, who sometimes inspire us with their words in their books or the movies they made or the music they've played. And so today you're in for a treat. I have a Brandon Lake with us, and he's going to just talk about life and music. And if you haven't heard his music, then get on Spotify right now. He doesn't need a plug. He's good music. And then what you're going to do is you're going to hear some of the songs you're like, oh, that's that guy. So Brandon, welcome to the Dream Big podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be on, and man, just to be on with a legend. It's quite the honor.
Oh, nice. That must be you're doing two podcasts at the same time because you just got Bob here. What do we like? They say one blind man showing the other blind man where the bread is. But yes, we each express our creativity in different ways. And so like if you had met me, gosh, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, you'd meet Lawyer Bob, which is so crazy because that's just such a far cry from like where life has evolved, and that whole idea being a new creation, that you might bail on music tomorrow and that'd be like heaven wouldn't have a problem with it. Other people would be scratching their head, but to just say not what am I capable of, but what am I called to? And so if we don't resist that, then we just allow ourselves to morph. Then we don't need to be a caricature of who we are. I don't need to be Bob the balloon guy. Currently I'm Bob the grandpa. So I married Maria. We made three people. They married three people and they made three people. So like Grandpa Bob now is just delighting in being home and playing with, like cars, trucks. Mater just arrived yesterday. I've just been pressing his roof and hearing what he say. I'm your best buddy. So tell us the stuff that makes up you on this adventure that you're on. And music is the wide spot in the road right now. And maybe there's other stuff you've been dreaming on, not to the exclusion of that, but maybe in addition to that. So tell us about this adventure you've been on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love what you said, and I resonate with that so much. I think that more than creating music, for me, I feel like I've been called to build people and to love on people in whatever form that looks like. And so, I feel like I'm called to be a modern day disciple. And right now, God's given me the amazing opportunity and privilege to help disciple people through music and putting into melody and language what I feel like God's heart is for people, and helping turn their attention to who he is and what makes, why he's so amazing. And so, I've been a local church dude. I'm a PK through and through, pastor's kid. For those of you who don't know, got picked on a lot growing up, but little did they know I had the time of my life growing up. Grew up in a church plant. And so on Friday nights, my daddy owns the building. So we have family fun nights, and we used the hot tub as the baptismal was a hot tub. Yeah. So we'd get in the hot tub, we'd put movies on the big screen. The auditorium was a basketball court, and we would skateboard and shoot basketball and get in the hot tub. And, my childhood has been amazing. I found music at a young age and just fell in love with playing guitar. And, I just wanted the girls to like me, to be honest, at first, and wanted to be cool. And then I felt the call of God on my life as I began to play and, sing. I was terrified of it at first and didn't want to do it. And then it was like, but I knew in my gut, there was like this deep, like calling. I knew it was like something God, it was like my friends were begging me to do it, but I knew it was like from God. And this was something I was supposed to devote my life to. It's been since I was 12 or 13, I started playing. I really fell in love with songwriting. I really looked up to Phil Wickham. He was one of my and still is.
Oh, what
Luckily
a
he's
good
become,
guy. He just like lives up the way.
yeah, he's amazing. Just my hero, and has become like a mentor and a best buddy of mine. And I just wanted to write songs like him. And so, I've heard the phrase, imitate before you innovate. And I did a whole lot of that, just imitated those I looked up to. And it's led me to writing songs for my church, and then has led me now to getting to write songs that a lot more people, by the grace of God, get to hear. And so I'm still a local church dude. I'm a family man. I just had my third son a few days ago.
Way to make people. Way to go.
Yeah, making people. And we got a whole lot of animals around. My wife's a huge animal lover. And man, my family just did such a good job raising me. And I'm trying to make them proud in the way I raise these little kiddos. I got 3 boys, Blaze, Bo, and Banner.
Oh, come on. I kind of hate my parents right now. They named me Bob. I'm like, really? I could have been freaking Blaze. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you would fit in my family as a Bob. The only requirement is a B. So we can adopt you.
Hey, I want to hover over a couple things. You grew up in the church, and some people, they have had just amazing experiences as you did. And others, just it was strange because it's made up of fallible people that are just trying to inch towards a God who says, like, your ways aren't my ways. And I'm like, man, I see that every single day in my life. And so what I really love is how music creates this like bridge between maybe some of the pain or disconnect in our experience. Somebody let us down, or maybe the big version of that, it would be a betrayal where you just felt like, wow, it wasn't just like flag on the plate. It was like, you blindsided me with that. And yet somehow music somehow is just such an effective vehicle for getting ideas and emotions across. And I wonder, I'd like to hear, because I'm not a musician, why you think that is. I just think among the things that come to mind is that you're not telling people what to make of the song. You're just releasing these beautiful words and lyrics that are well thought through, very intentional. And then you're allowing that to meet people. I'm just thinking of like the parables, like Jesus, it was Matthew 15, it said he never spoke to anybody without telling him a story. And I think he didn't tell them, so this is what that has to mean to you. He just told the story, and then some people walked away and they got it and others didn't. So why music? Why does music have that ability to just make people feel welcome?
Well, I think it's experiential, and not a lot of people can trust the truth, or when they can't trust the truth, maybe they can trust their experience and that it moves them, and they can't deny that something about that moved me. And sometimes I can trust that more than I can the pastor that's standing on the platform and he's saying the things, but there's something about music that it moves us. And it's like we were made for that. It's like it speaks to the deepest parts of you. And I think it's just a powerful tool when you take the truth of God's word, who he is, and you put it to melody. And I think it's able to communicate maybe a little bit differently. It's an amazing question that I've actually never heard of before. And it's a beautiful thing to think about that, for me, I don't know. I think a lot of times I can trust it more than what someone just says. But the way it arrested my heart, and then I think there's a beautiful thing about music that, I've said that what our songs do is carry the message beyond Sunday. And there's a lot about Sunday's messages. If you go to church, or maybe you listen to someone online, and for me, I have a very little attention span and ability to remember the things I'm hearing. But when you put it in a melody and you put it to a rhythm, there's something about that I'm able to like meditate on it over and over. And there's a lot of things that like, I don't believe at first, but when it sticks, it's like my mind has time to catch up with it, and my heart has time to catch up with it. And, that's even a practice that I went to Israel a few years ago, and we went to go see the Western Wall, and we asked them why they were rocking and singing these scriptures facing the wall. And our tour guide said that is the way they memorize the scriptures, is actually to a melody and to a rhythm, to a cadence. And I think there's something to that, that maybe the truth, these words are able to penetrate in a different way when they're to a melody, and when they're presented in this way. Not only can they pierce in a different way, but then they also can stick, and they can stay with you beyond Sunday. And maybe a lot of us just need some time for our minds and our heart to catch up with this truth, instead of trying to just hear it once and receive it, you know?
Yeah. Think about it for a second. I've heard a couple pretty good sermons, and you have as well. But I've never hummed a sermon. Yeah. I've never hummed a, like, how did the sermon go? Mm-hmm. But music, and the parts that you remember, the parts that stick, it's like smelling like the cookies in the oven, or the smell of burnt toast and bacon, like that. Just like all of a sudden I'm back on the camping trip. I smell that thing, and it just pulls me there. And I love that when you release a song, you don't tell people the parts of their emotions or their life experience that it needs to touch. What you're saying is, this is a safe place for the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And you can dwell in this really safe place, because I'm not going to shout at you. I'm going to sing to you. And so as silly as that sounds, it sounds like just creating a safe place. And we can do that. I mean, I couldn't carry a note in a bucket, but like, that's why God made Starbucks. You could create a safe place, make sure you pay for your friend, and then just create a little safe place for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and just say, this is a place where we can just like keep it super real. Tell me the parts that are the felt needs or the things, and let me start first. So I will pick that. I'll set the tempo for vulnerability in this. And so where a lot of people admire, I'm one of them, great musicians and their ability to take us to beautiful places. Even if you, like, your instrument of choice was the trombone, don't bring that, or do bring it to Starbucks, but to just say, you get to like touch people in the same way with your vulnerability. You get to say, we can talk about the pain points and where those came from, and pray these honest prayers like the dad in Mark 9, like, I believe, just help my unbelief. Here's a part I'm positive about. I'm positive about the Jesus part. And the part I'm not as sure about just yet, I'm not, God isn't afraid of our questions. It's just like, we get to say, this is the part I'm just, there's these people that are really difficult, like me included, as I said, but like, to say, what do you do when people within our faith communities are kind of policing one another? And it has like a wave, like, as a San Diego guy, there's a front and back side to the wave. So the front side is us encouraging each other towards good works and all the things that our friends in the scriptures talked about. But at the same time, there's a backside, which seems like the hall monitor of our faith. That we're like so busy trying to help other people not lose their way that we lose our way. So how are you doing in the best, most like optimistic version of that? One function is releasing words that are true. What other kinds of things are you doing to just let people know that they're welcome? Because I've listened to your music. I feel invited when I hear it.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that. Just this thought came to mind as you're talking, that I think as leaders, and we don't maybe even intentionally try to do this, but when we're trying to pastor somebody or lead somebody, shepherd somebody, encourage somebody, I think a lot of times we try to get them to look more like us, when really we just need to get them to look more like Jesus. And I think that's where we maybe get a little bit caught up in the policing and it's when we try to form people, we try to shape people into what we think they should look like, instead of like letting God do the work and like pointing them towards him. And so like, man, I really hope my songs do that, is not like just try to encourage you to like, be more like how I think you should be, or live like how I think you should live. And hopefully it's like, man, it just points you to Jesus, points you to God, to how God says you should live and what he wants you to become. Because we can have very different ideas, and that's a beautiful thing for anybody who's like, kind of coming back to what you said a minute ago, just who's been hurt by people like in the church or in ministry or anywhere, you know, I've had some really interesting moments in my walk and being a part of the church for years and since I was little, and it's really hard to lose trust. But one thing I've just decided to, and I've seen, not just believe, but I've actually seen it, and God, I have testimonies of this, is where I've been hurt by people trying to help me, right? But I think their intention was good, but they're really trying to form me into maybe what they wanted me to be, and not actually what God was doing, what He was saying for my life. And the quicker that I chose to forgive, the quicker I saw God use that opportunity. And, you know, there's that scripture that says, what the enemy meant for evil, God will turn for good. And I think if you can go into one of those situations or look back and you can allow God to turn that for good, I've seen friendships that I've been hurt by, like, actually be strengthened through that. And we've actually somehow, by the grace of God, now trust each other even more because we've had the hard conversations, or, you know, and so I've really watched God do that in my life. And so I just wanted to say that for anyone listening who's been hurt, man, like, God can absolutely use that situation, even though it's really, really tough, and bring good from that, and teach you something, and teach them something when there's vulnerability, there's authenticity, when there's forgiveness. And hopefully I didn't go somewhere different that you didn't want to go, but I just wanted to say that, man, we're all flawed.
That's exactly where I want to go. And I also want to give some airtime to these beautiful heroes of love that are within the church that are just unspoken. It's easy to identify and sometimes over-identify with our woundedness and like where somebody let us down and all that. But I want to lift our eyes and say, think about the people who lifted you up. Like, there's a long list of people that faith was important to them, and they just quietly, they're not rocking it in front of a lot of audiences and all that. They're just quietly loving on people and doing the kinds of stuff that Jesus said, man, you stand on a corner and make a big deal about everything, that you got your reward, you got your little golf clap. But I just think of the scores of people that have just quietly demonstrated a lot of patience where I wasn't justified. I hadn't earned it, but they were just patient with me. And I just like quietly being love's heroes. And many of them are in our brick buildings with steeples on them. They're not all there. The guy at the tire store is pretty nice dude too. But to just say, instead of just thinking about like, I've got another grievance, like this person let me down and they did that, and then Southwest was late and all that. It's easy to get distracted by some of that and to say, man, like, tell me about the mailman that walked through 1.5 feet of water in Dallas last week to get somebody. Granted, it was a phone bill, but they got the mail there. Like, I really, really I want to make sure that we're given equal time to those things. And it's just, they call it, I live way out in the bush. You got to come out to this place sometime. It's just like my nearest neighbor is 10,000 square miles away. It's just in the bush. And it's either a really long boat ride to get there or a pretty long seaplane ride. And so I ended up with this pilot's license so I could get in and out of this thing on this rickety old seaplane.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. And the first thing they teach you is situational awareness. What you do is they want to scan the sky, right? That'd be kind of intuitive, so you don't like hit something. But then chunk it up like 10% of the sky at a time. Take a really hard look at 10%, then a really hard look at 10%. And if I do that in my life, I've just kind of like, I got the big picture of who Bob is, but then to take, for all of you listening, just take 10% of your life and just say, look about how your relationships are going. Are you keeping up? Are you like just snorkeling in the top foot or two of your relationships? Because Jesus just said you could shipwreck dive. Like, we could actually go down there together. We could buddy breathe. Like, let's just go deep and see what happens. And I know it's scary because you might get like burned again. But you know what?
Right.
I didn't come to snorkel. I got, we each got about 4,000 weeks here. I'm not spending it in the top 2 feet. And then you could say finances are freaking you out. Like, to just say, let's just see what that's connected to. And maybe you need to get a job or get a better job or do something different or start buying less saltwater taffy, whatever it is, but to just take a dive and to say, what are the real pieces of that? You might be strapped by some real live, honest to goodness, to get medical bills or whatever it is, but get real with that and to say, is there anybody adjacent to me that could be like really helpful? There's a great verse in 2 Peter 1:3. It says, God has already given us everything we need to lead beautiful, godly lives. So to say, if God's already given me you, I got a musician. And if he's given something else, he's got another person. So let's think about ways that we could continue on in doing what we're doing in really practical ways. Tell me the things that you're looking forward to as you continue to change and morph. I know you put this stuff aside, but like a guy that gets like the Dove Award for the Musician of the Year, like Songwriter of the Year, that's a really big deal. And for those of you that are listening, you just grab some of Brandon's music just because you'll know more about him. He'll point you more towards faith. I think you've released a new album. What's the one that you just released?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So when I did my first tour, I came off of my first tour with Bethel Music, and I had my first anxiety attack, panic attack. Never knew what anxiety felt like, never experienced it. Honestly, thought it might even be fake, and came home, and I was not prepared for coming off of this mountaintop experience. I had just written with a lot of my heroes in the same weeks as tour. Come home, have this crazy panic attack at Disney, which some people think it's heaven. I think Disney might be hell for me. Yeah. I can't handle it. And so I go immediately into this vacation, which was not a vacation at all. And I had no time to decompress, to talk to my wife. And this transition period was just, it was disastrous. And so I freak out and, began believing lies that I didn't even recognize myself as far as what was going on in here in my head. And so I isolated myself too. Wasn't even talking to my wife about it because I was kind of ashamed that I somehow allowed my brain to get to this point. And I felt so panicked. And I finally reached out to a few of my buddies, and I was too prideful to even call them on the phone. So I texted them. I said, "Hey, I'm freaking out. I don't know what's going on, but my mind is a mess. I just need you to pray for me." My friend calls me immediately, again, too prideful to answer. I ended it. We're putting our boys to sleep. I'm freaking out. I get this voice text, and I'm laying in bed with one of my boys as he's falling asleep. Brittany's in the other bed with the other boy. And I begin to play this voice memo of him praying over me. And in that moment, as soon as I heard him starting to pray and I heard the words come out of his mouth, I just broke. I broke. And I just began to weep. Brittany looks over at me. Actually, before I begin to weep, she looks over and she goes, "Babe, what's going on?" And it was then I broke. I quickly learned that we weren't made to sustain these mountaintop experiences. And when you come home off of something like that, that valley gets deeper. And there were some tools I was going to have to develop to be able to do this thing and stay mentally healthy. Over the next year or two, I began to write songs, not even intentionally, but just processing these things I was feeling, and these lies I was believing. And, a few months ago, really, it was kind of an out of nowhere idea. I'm just in the car, which is where I like to dream the most. It's quiet. I got little kids going crazy all the time. So I get in my car and I just begin to dream and hear from God. And I look at all these songs that I've written that I had no plan on releasing. I'm like, I really want to put out a project soon. And I look at all these songs and they have the same theme of mental health. And so I look at this song that is really the catalyst of this season of writing songs about mental health and the things I was processing. And it's called Help. And so over the next few weeks, I gathered a few people around me. I was like, I want to record this now. I thought I was going to do 4 or 5 songs. It turned into 10 songs. I didn't even realize what I had at the time. And so I recorded this project. And I wanted to release something. I felt, I was like, this could be the end of me releasing songs that are a little more honest and brutal and confessing how I feel crazy at times. But there's answers in these songs as well. Consulted with some of my friends, and they all confirmed, like, man, now's the time to put this out. People need this more than ever. There's two biggest things that are under attack right now since COVID: mental health and marriages. And it's really wild to look back and look at, for some reason, I released a record prior to Help for my wife on our 10-year anniversary around COVID, actually. I did a marriage record, if you will, to surprise my wife, put out a few songs I wrote for her, completely surprised her. She had no idea, but I released it to the world. And, I wasn't even going to release that because I felt like maybe it was just for us. And then my buddy looks at me one day. He's like, why wouldn't you put this out? Your marriage is one of the most holy things that you could put on display. It's one of the best examples of what Christ has done for us, is you and your wife's relationship. I think you should put it out. So I did that. That's what gave me the confidence to release a record largely around mental health. And there's some songs that are more honest. And like, there's a song that says, my mind feels like a circus, taming tigers, flaming torches. I can't deal with my own conscience. And it's a cry for help. And then there's some songs that are the answer, that the remedy to that. And they point people to, like, hey, I believe Jesus is the end of all anxiety. Like, this is like, run to him. Like, he's got the answers. Like, he is the Prince of Peace. Like, he is our comforter. And so there's songs that sound like rock and roll and I'm screaming my head off. And then there's songs on the same record that are soothing and perfect to like facilitate peace. And so Help, I just came out with. It's been really cool to see people connect to these songs. And even if they're not bought into this is the answer, I think one powerful thing that the record does is it makes people feel like, you know what? Me too. Have you faced that? You felt that before? Me too. And that's one of the most freeing things to hear someone else say is, man, you've done that. You've felt that. You've experienced that. Hey, me too. You're not alone.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a woman that Jesus met along the way. And as she told the friends, like, what happened, she said, he told me about everything in my life.
Yeah.
And that's what the ability that you have as a songwriter, singer, to do that, to connect. And then people can decide how deep they want to go. You want to snorkel on this one, or just like tap your foot. That's terrific. And if you want to just like let it fillet you.
Yeah.
So
right,
we get to actually decide to kind of want I want to tap into that idea of, during this time, that mental health and marriage and all that. And we've all gone to the weddings, and I've performed a couple, and it's like the 1 Corinthians 13, love is this, love is that. And that these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. And if I was all of darkness, what I would do, I wouldn't attack all the peripheral stuff that doesn't matter. What I'd do is I'd focus on the only three things God said would remain: faith, hope, and love. I'd attack your faith. I'd make everybody quarreling with each other. I'd start throwing Bible verses like grenades at each other. I'd foment a lot of discord, and everybody's right. And they want to be right. They don't want to be like Jesus. And then I'd attack people's hope. I'd make them so afraid that they're just playing defense on everything. They just stop hoping for things. And I'd strip away some of the institutions and other things that they had a little confidence in, and I'd throw that sock drawer on the floor and all that. And then I'd attack love. I just attack the most loving relationships you have, and I'd distort what it is and all that. And so just being heads up, I don't see the devil around every corner. That hasn't been my experience, but I do see, like, these are the things that are doing it. I just don't want to take notes on it. I want to push back against it. And so each in our own way. If words are your thing, write your words. If compassion is your thing, just be compassionate. You don't have to go across an ocean, go across the street. Because if it ain't working at the end of your block, don't take it to the ends of the earth. Like, dear child, I'm positive about, like, just do it right here, and then you'll fail. Like, it won't work. And so, like, that just demonstrates for me my, like, tremendous need for a savior. Like, it just go, like, I know I can't even on a good day pull this thing together. And I'm a pretty upbeat guy. and you can both be upbeat and situationally aware. So, man, thank you for making some time.
Of
what
course.
a treat. And let's not make this the last time. Let's get into some mischief together and like see what we're learning.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I like
come
mischief
on.
for sure.
Well, you guys, you've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. I'm so glad you're along on the road. And Brandon Lake, he's got a new album. He doesn't need you to buy it. He just wants your life to be changed. Go get like, Donny Osmond, whatever it is that gets you to the feet of something that won't ever abandon you or outlast you. Like I'm a Jesus guy, Brandon's a Jesus guy, but find those things that would like die for you before you die for it. And there's something beautiful about understanding what those things are. And then let those things that are going to actually last be the things that you're aiming for. All right, you guys, so long.
Thanks for having me.